another episode of the Axcess Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Vinny. We are recording live today from beautiful Long Island Fieldhouse in Hauppauge, New York, joined by a very special guest, Coach Parsolano, head coach at St. Anthony's High School. Coach, it's been a while. How's it going? How are you enjoying the off-season?
You know what? So far, so good. 3 days into a new year. I'm still alive, still standing, so things are well.
And I have some news as well. First episode after having my daughter, so life is...
You know what? Let's congratulate you. Congratulations, firstborn.
Thank you. So life is taking on a little different meaning now, and, it certainly is surreal. So I'm still going to enjoy doing what I do, covering Long Island baseball, but might have to take a little bit of a step back, I think, in terms of...
You're going to be able to handle that? Step it back a little bit?
I'm going to have to delegate. I have no choice. So I'm still going to do what I love to do and cover the game. And, that's what I wanted to get to. In the off-season so far, we've had a piping hot stove season with Major League Baseball. And I know as a Mets fan, you must be pretty excited with the direction that the team is going on, that the team has gone. And, I mean, what were your impressions when the offseason started and the Mets lost Jacob deGrom? You were probably thinking, here we go, another Mets legend that's not going to fulfill, the long, lifelong, his career in one uniform, right?
Yeah, when the season ended, it didn't end the way any of us wanted. Obviously, being, every Met fan will agree with that. But once we saw where deGrom was leading, like hearing stories now, we knew he was out the door. Because you heard stories that he wanted to come back earlier and they kept holding him back, and you hear all these things. You don't know what's true and what's not. But once the money started flying around that day, he was going to get 5 years. I think most Met fans understood we can't get 15 starts for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So we knew he was going to go.
And I think that the only way people would not have been upset is the way it went down, with the fact that he went to the AL West. He's not really going to impact them in any way, other than that I think they're facing them this year. But
they added some guys. That's Ranger staff should be serviceable.
Yeah, but he's not going to come back to bite them in the butt. It's not like he's not going to the Braves. Right. That would have been a different level. The Phillies, God forbid. So he's not going to kill them. And then on top of that, the 5 years.
Yes.
So I don't think any Met fan begrudges them for not going 5 years. And they responded pretty swiftly.
Yeah, the only thing that kind of irks me is, like, Mets held him in a real high regard, like up in that Seaver Gooden kind of thing. And he made a couple of comments at the Rangers press conference about wanting to be part of a winning thing, and that rubbed Met fans the wrong way. And it took him, a week to release a statement, which Met fans take personal because we're so attached to him, and it seemed like he was detached from us.
Yeah, I didn't think that statement was ever coming. And
but we never saw that coming. Jake was always such he was a reserved guy. He never really spoke out, and so we loved him for that.
Yeah. And
we saw over the last months after he left, he kind of seemed like he didn't want to be here the last couple of years. So, it kind of taints it a little bit. But at the end of the day, 48 is going to it should be retired.
Yeah, it makes you wonder why they didn't push him more. Like, the way that they were very cautious led me to believe that they planned on having him on the team for years.
That's what I'm
and now it's like, well, if he would have got hurt, big deal. He's not their responsibility anymore. Right. But I guess, the doctors are going to have their own say about that. So, shifting gears from him, the Mets answered pretty resoundingly. They replaced him with the next best pitcher available in the free agent market, Justin Verlander. In my opinion, an upgrade because he's the reigning Cy Young winner. Not, it's not on the back of his baseball card somewhere. The reigning Cy Young winner. Then to get a little bit more stability, they get a lefty in Jose Quintana, which I don't know your thoughts on him, but knowing you the way I know you, I think you like lefties that pitch to contact.
Yes,
right?
Yes. And he's going to take the ball. You know what I mean? He's going to take the ball. In the last 2 years, I know he had he started strong, went down a little bit, and now he's back to that guy when he was younger.
Yeah. So
I think it's 30 starts, and he's going to be like a Carrasco. He's going to give you that mid 3.4 ERA, 13, 14 wins. Wow. But with Verlander, I was driving here. And when I got in the parking lot, I Googled something because it was sticking in my head. 14 of the last 16 years, Verlander's made 28-plus starts.
And that's what
the only 2 years he hasn't is when he had Tommy John. That guy is going to take the ball every 5 days. What more could you ask for having that kind of guy knowing? And, look, as a Met fan, deGrom, is he back? Is he pitching? Is he not pitching? Now with Verlander, it's just
good to have
see
some
him once a
stability,
week.
right?
Yeah, once a week for 6 months.
Yeah, and hopefully for the next 3 years, 2 years, not just for for half the season. And then they took a flyer on Senga. I think every Met fan was kind of happy about that because for years they would kind of sit back and play the waiting game with these international free agents. why not take a swing? That's
The only thing I'll say about that, you remember, this might have been before, Matsui.
Of course.
Remember the middle infielder? He was supposed to come. They wanted to move Reyes to second because Matsui was. So that's the only thing I have is like, oh God, I hope their eval is correct.
Kaz Matsui was not Hideki Matsui, so it seemed like the Mets, like he wasn't Ichiro. They settled for the third best guy in the market. This was, at least they took a swing on the best guy. Whether or not it works out, but I saw the clips of him in the World Baseball Classic. You strike out McCutchen in his prime, Adam Jones in his prime. To me, that's the kind of move that you make. And then lastly, Carlos Correa. Obviously, as we record right now, still in limbo. But I got to assume that he knows what he's doing when he posted that picture yesterday of his son wearing "I Love New York" shirts.
See, but I don't understand what's with these cryptic messages. I saw something else, and it's NBA related. But D'Angelo Russell did something similar today about with the Minnesota Timberwolves. They stopped following them, Is this how we're doing these things now? Is we throw out these cryptic things that people can piece together? Like
I think so.
Because look, you're reading into it. I read into it too. I'm like, oh, he's coming.
Yeah.
What if he signs with the Yanks? 2 years.
Oh boy. And I think the Yankee fans have a little disdain for him based on
they
what
would
he's
buy
done
right in. There'd be Correa
years.
jerseys everywhere at Yankee Stadium, without a doubt.
And on those same lines, obviously we got to discuss the Yankees. I think they made the best move they could make signing Rodon, because given where they were last year, they probably needed another lights out pitcher behind Cole.
Yes.
And whether he's healthy or not, which nobody knows the future, but you have a power pitching lefty that in Yankee Stadium theoretically should work. So I think that there was a mixed review on him going into the offseason, but he's the kind of pitcher that once you see him in the uniform, you're like, all right, I'll take a lefty that throws in the upper 90.
But where did that come from with him? Because he's been good from start to finish, right? He's never had any real hiccups.
So he had an interesting case because he was a third overall pick in that draft with Conforto, and then he was always hurt. So I think he got non-tendered by the White Sox, and you get non-tendered. That's
Death knell.
That's them giving you the ultimate sign of disrespect that you're not even worthy of the qualifying offer. And he responded. So I think some people might look at it and be skeptical that he did it in a contract year, but he did it in 2 straight contract years.
Yeah, his numbers are good, man.
Yeah, I would say that a pitcher could kind of find motivation to stay healthy for 1 full year, but it's hard to just piece it together for 2 years. Is now, to me, that's the real deal. So we'll see. But the Yankees won 100 games and they returned Judge. I just wanted to mention Judge quick. I don't think there's a whole lot to say. I mean, the guy is coming off one of the greatest seasons ever, but he's not going to have a better season than that. It's almost like there was no option B for the Yankees. They needed it.
No, you go to a Yankee game. How many 99s are in the stands? He had to come back. Yeah. He's the face of that team. He's their captain now.
Yeah.
That'd be like dumping Jeter, dumping Thurman Munson, dumping Don Mattingly. You can't. He's got to be there, and they did it. They pulled it off.
And one thing that I see, because when I do these feature stories on kids, I always ask them, who's your favorite Major League player? Because I just want to get a sense for what resonates with players. Because any time you ask somebody that's my age or a little bit younger, everybody says Derek Jeter. Like, assuming that they're either Yankee fans or just enjoy watching baseball. Met fans will say David Wright from that era, Mike Piazza, but 99% of players, it seemed like, was Derek Jeter. And then you get to that next generation, if you want to call it, of kids that are maybe
it's the next generation, 100%.
Gen Z. If they're in their young 20s or teenagers, everybody seems to either say Aaron Judge, or if they like more intense players, it's Bryce Harper. What do you see from your perspective? Who are kids trying to emulate?
Judge seems to be the guy, especially being in New York. That's all we hear. But Trout's got some staying power around all the high school guys I'm around all the time. Trout's name always comes up. Ohtani's name pops up all the time now because if you're a high school 2A, why wouldn't you think that guy's the greatest thing since sliced bread?
Let me stop you right there because I think that's a great point. Ohtani, being on the West Coast, people don't really get to see him that much, but he possibly could come to New York next year, which would put him in a whole other stratosphere.
Honestly, I think he's going to come to New York. I think that's the play. And I think he might be traded. If the Angels are out of it by July or August, which could happen, don't be surprised he doesn't get moved then, and then we sign him to that extension and stuff like that. I can see that.
The only thing is, if you're a team that wants him, is it worth it to trade all your minor league, all of your prospects, but then you have to build around him, and you can't build around him if you trade it all. So it's a catch-22.
It is a
I think
catch-22,
it's worth
but
it to just empty the pockets in the offseason.
you know what? I agree with you, but you know what? If the Braves and the Phillies and we're just beating each other up through the months of June and July, and that window opens up, give them everybody. Who cares? As long as you keep Alvarez so he can catch, give them all up. Prospects are still prospects. Otani's a known entity. You know what I mean? And you bring him to New York, he would be magic here for 3 months.
I think he would be a billionaire because with the Asian presence, I think that it is a no-brainer that you would almost need to have another stadium just for the media that would be around him.
Yeah.
It's not.
He's rock star status, man. He's on the cover of MLB The Show. You know what I mean? He's the best player to use in MLB The Show. You know what I mean?
Do you see him being a two-way guy long term? Because that's kind of been a hot topic. Is if you're going to give him $500 million, which is they asked around executives in an article, and they said that's kind of the rate: $25 million as a pitcher, $25 million as a position player. But if you're doing that, you better hope he stays doing both.
You know what? We're in uncharted waters. Who knows if he can maintain that from a pitching perspective? It's kind of like a running back in the NFL, right? You get that 7-8 year window where you're dominant, and then injuries or whatever, you just don't put up the same numbers. But from a hitting point of view, you can do it for 15, 16 years and be dominant. I think that's a go season by season. He might not last as a pitcher. How old is he now? 28?
He's like 28, 29, I would think, yeah.
So what, pitch him in the rotation until he's 32, 33, and then you DH him and put him in right field and let him hit the next 5 years of his contract?
I think that's reasonable. I think they almost follow.
Could you imagine he turns into Schmaltz and starts closing games when he's 32, 33, and you're bringing him in from right field?
He very well could, because by all accounts, he is maniacal about his body and his work ethic.
Right.
And I don't see a guy like that falling off a cliff. His stuff might diminish, but it's not going to deteriorate.
No, I agree.
It's not the 1960s. He's not, drinking a case of beer after the game.
It's still crazy. He can throw 100 pitches, strike out 13, and hit 2 home runs the next night. It's insane.
Do you see more of an influx of two-way players? I think that it's so rare that it's just not really
at that
happen,
level.
Right?
It's a unicorn type thing. When are you going to find Otani's considered one of the best 5 pitchers in baseball, right? Top 8. Offensively, he's what, top 4, top 5?
Yeah, there was an interesting stat that said basically based on ERA plus, he was better than Garrett Cole, and offensively, he was basically Freddie Freeman. So you're having a $40 million a year, a $35 million a year pitcher, and a $30 million. So no matter what you pay him, you could make the argument that he's underpaid.
And he does stay on the field.
Yeah,
he
stays
on the
healthy.
field.
So I think we do see him in New York. I would be cautious about emptying the minor league system for a guy that you're then going to have to pay. But we'll see. I think that if the stakes are high and the Mets are 1 game out in
I love
July
the prospect
31st.
hoarding you do. The prospect hoarding. There are guys. We've been doing this for decades, but I think at this stage of the game, we're a win now team. I've been waiting my whole life to have a Steinbrenner-esque owner. Mm-hmm. We got that guy. I don't see us. I know prospects obviously are important. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we're still any high-end guy at the end of the season, every season going forward. The Mets are in the mix for. And if we have an open spot where we could use that guy, we're going to get him over other guys. It's fantastic.
Have you been surprised about the negative feedback about the spending? Because it seems like for decades the Yankees did it, then the Dodgers did it. Do you think people just got desensitized to the Yankees doing it to where if the Mets do it, it's like, oh, no.
Yeah, it's Crimea River stuff because it's Crimea River stuff. Met fans have been watching other teams do this for decades. We finally got a chance at it. I'd pay it.
I saw an interesting fact the other day that in 2005 the Yankees had the highest payroll by 67%, and the Mets right now are like 35%. But yeah, people just because you see that high number,
because the numbers
resonates, I guess, a little bit. But they had a $205 million payroll when teams had $15 million payrolls.
Yes,
So it is night and day different.
And look, the Mets have done this kind of spending before. They did it in the early '90s when they lost Strawberry and all those guys, and they built up with Vince Coleman, Saberhagen, and all those guys. And then in the 2000s, they dumped a ton of money into guys. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
I'd say the optimistic side is that there was no foundation there. They spent for guys with the back of the baseball card. They're coming off a 100-win season, so you supplement
101.
Yeah, exactly. And people like to say second place, but they
you can say whatever you want. They won 101 games. So I'm fine with it. And we were tied. We didn't finish in second.
Yeah, tied. They found one more way. I mean, that's the one negative taste in the mouth about DeGrom is that if he holds a 3-0 lead in Oakland that day, I think probably the argument's a little bit more negative about him leaving because you would kind of do whatever you could.
Lead.
Yeah, that was painful to see. So shifting gears, talking about Long Island baseball this year. Where are you guys at in the calendar in terms of your preparation for the season?
Actually, we're having our winter meeting is tomorrow. We meet with all levels 9 through 12, and we'll start our workouts the 14th and 15th. And we go on. We just hit on the weekends because all these guys, they do. Their summer teams do winter workouts, and I really try hard not to affect that because, parents are spending money, and these summer programs, they all do such a great job prepping players for their high school season. So the reason we do our winter workouts is for me just to really get to know every kid that's in our program, know the swing, know what the kids like, and I go that route because the part of working out part, they're all going to be in great shape, which is pretty cool. I wish they had it when I played. I'm sure you wish you had this type of focus when you played.
Yeah, it's all changed so quickly. I mean, when I was in high school, they had, we would take batting practice in the cage, but it wasn't necessarily organized, and there wasn't winter workouts with the travel organizations. Everybody played another sport, so it was tough to get everybody on the same page. Now you're seeing a lot more specialization, right? I mean, you could have a whole episode just talking about that, but generally speaking, would you say kids are more focused on one sport now?
You know what, I can't say that because we have a bunch of 2-ways at St. Anthony's, and I'm sure other schools have them as well. It's school of thought. Like, I think guys should play as many sports as they can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You use different muscles. You're around different types of kids. It's it's competition.
Yeah.
So
learning
in the
to deal
winter,
with failure.
And baseball's a great sport in the context that you can hit once a week, twice a week. You can long toss, throw, get yourself up, but still play basketball. You can still wrestle. You can still find your sport, run track, whatever it is. I don't see any issue with that, but like I said,
but I'm saying like that's a school of thought, but in reality, are kids doing that?
You know what? Think about it. There are more one-sport guys than multi-sport guys. Yes, I agree with that.
And I think I've said this before in an episode, but like Jim Harbaugh, one of the things that he looked for in an athlete was being a multi-sport player, because one of them was going to be your weaker sport, and you have to learn to deal with negativity and adversity.
That's a great point.
So if you have a kid that all he does is throw shutouts against weak competition, maybe he's not that same level of dominance on the basketball court, and he's a little bit more humble. And
you learn how to sit on the bench and watch other guys play, and you learn to accept that and understand that's your role. So then when you get to your primary sport, because at the end of the day, when all these really high-end high school guys go off to college, there are other high-end guys in front of them. We've spoken about this before. And you have to watch those guys fail first before you get your chance. So why not play another sport? Even if you're not very good and you're a second or third string guy under the bench on basketball, why not watch other guys play? Understand what you need to do to get on the court. It will help you in your primary sport.
And now, closing the book on the 2022 season, I know you guys had a very good season. Good season. What were your lasting impression, I guess, just looking back from a 30,000-foot view?
As far as the Catholic League, or St. Anthony's, or just the dominance of Chaminade?
I would say St. Anthony's.
You know what? We were happy because our goal was to try and win every game, obviously, and we understood what Chaminade was, and we know what a bear that was to beat those guys. But you also can't just focus on them because all the other teams in our league are so competitive and so talented. I thought we had a really good year. We just ran into two really good pitchers in the playoffs, and you're playing Chaminade in round one, and we won our game, and then we had to play Chaminade, and then we lost, and then you're playing Kellenberg, and Gloop's on the mound, and Gloop's a really good pitcher, and we couldn't hit, and that's baseball, and obviously
he
disappointed.
beat Chaminade in the first game of the championship.
He threw the heck out of it against us, and it didn't surprise me that he beat him because his stuff is really good, like really, really good that day.
Yeah, and it's always amazing because you could go into a season, even in a league where there's not a ton of teams, you feel like you have a good sense of it, and then somebody comes out of nowhere and winds up having a huge
was
impact.
always a really good pitcher, but I mean, he raised the confidence, the aura that was coming off him when we were facing him. We were struggling. We scored early, I thought, and the Kellenberg catcher kind of blocked the plate, and Jack couldn't get in. And I thought, I know it was a bang play, but I knew that run was going to be, it could be 1-0. We had to get the run first because I didn't think we were going to score again. So, I kind of lost it a little bit, and we didn't win that call. And obviously, they got a couple big hits, and they beat us. That's the way it is. And this year's going to be the same thing.
So much parity. I mean,
so much parity, and I think that's great.
And you mentioned Jack. I just wanted to close the book on his career. I mean, can you tell our audience like what he meant to the program? He just seemed like he was as impactful in the clubhouse and
Yes.
and as a leader as he
Yes.
was stat wise.
Yeah, Jack and I know I've told the story, but we can tell it again now because I'm sure he'll watch this and he'll get excited for it. But when Jack was a freshman, I had called up two other kids ahead of him to play on JVA, and I kept him on freshman when he was a freshman, obviously, and he was devastated. He weighed 130 pounds, but I knew he was good. But I wanted him. He was still pitching at the time, but I wanted him to play every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I explained it to him in that context. I'm like, I'm not going to have you bring you up to JVA if you're going to watch other guys play. You're going to have to play every day on freshman, and we'll go from there. And obviously, we know what happened. He gets called up to varsity as a freshman at the end of the season, and off he goes. But Jack, a couple things about Jack: consistent, same guy every day. I never saw him rage or lose his self-control. Now, I've seen him get excited, but I never saw him lose his focus in any of his at-bats for 4 years. Mm-hmm. He made one error. It was 0 errors, but he made that one error in the last inning. Taj could have picked it. Taj. But yeah, the kid was flawless defensively. He ran the bases well. The same guy every day, and he understood that the kids that were watching him play, the way he performed is the way a high school baseball player is supposed to look, and in every possible way. And that's why, we're not going to give out 33 anymore because I don't want anybody else to wear it. But I'm giving it to Jason DeCaro. That's his number, so Jay I'm going to give it to, and they both agreed, Jason and Jack. After this year, we'll just shut down 33.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That's my respect for what Jack has done for us. Mm-hmm. Because if you think about it, and I'll end on this, so I'll keep it. When I got the job at St. Anthony's to where we are now, a lot of that has to do with Jack. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We've come so far, in building this thing into something that we can be proud of and respected. Mm-hmm. And Jack is literally at the top of the mountain for getting us there.
Mm-hmm. And one more thing I wanted to mention regarding your team. In 2020, you guys, as you know, when the season was canceled, you had that high-end pitching staff that I think would have competed for a championship.
Yes.
Now, fast forward to 2023, there's some similarities there where you have, DeCaro is going to UNC, kind of similar to what Stallone could have been that year had they had the season. And then you have Kassenbaum, who beat Chaminade. And then you have some younger guys that could step in. I'm very high on Baez. You don't
Baez
have
is a very good player,
I know that you're not going to tell every.
Yeah, they got to earn their way.
Open the curtain on everybody.
But Kevin, 100%.
I can say, from my opinion, he very impressive. Impressed me. But that's pretty good arms atop the rotation. So there's some similarities.
We have some really good upper level pitching. But and I'm really excited once we start our workout so I can see some of these younger guys. We have an abundance of freshmen and sophomores that can really get after it, pitching wise, offensively. But the pitching there isn't, maybe I'd say, from what I know, and I haven't really gotten into these guys too much, so I'll have a better idea. But there's about 6 or 8 real dudes right now that I'm aware of based on what other people are telling me from what they've seen.
Yeah.
So as I watch these guys throw, but so we are really stacked from start to finish. So hopefully we can massage it enough, because you know how hard it is to organize your pitching where you can be good every year and keep kids in the building, because it's tough. High-end guys, if they're not playing with private school, they can go back to public and be a rock star. So it's a fine line being able to make sure your players stay where they are.
And lastly, on DeCaro, I mean, he's no secret. He's going to UNC. He's outstanding. He was outstanding last season. I mean, what stood out to you, or I should say, what kind of maturation have you seen from the time you
since he was a 10th grader? When we put him in the rotation in 10th grade, and he was he's like a baby giraffe. He's finding his way and this and that, and he had command, but he got hit just like anybody else in 10th grade would in the Catholic League. And last year he raised the level of play, and this year he just keeps morphing, and he never ceases to surprise me now, because I thought he was a really good pitcher, and you could see it. And then last year I'm like, oh wow, he's really, really good. And now he's at the stage now where he's a dominant kind of kid. And we talk about it all the time that there's a lot of pressure on him to succeed, because he should. His stuff is too good. He has the focus and the wherewithal to pull it off. But obviously he's got to perform in the spring. But yes, he is extremely impressive. He's up to 6'6" now, maybe 6'5" and a half. Yeah, and he's going to be a dominant force in the spring, I hope. Yeah, and he's hitting too. I'm going to let him hit too.
Yeah, he's got some legit power.
He's going to hit.
And we covered that game against St. John the Baptist where he threw a shutout. And from my perspective, in a wood bat league with his stuff, he's the favorite for the pitcher of the year going in. That would be my my prediction.
And there are a
going
bunch
in.
of high-end arms in our league too. Everybody's got one or two, right?
Yep, and Kellenberg, and St. Dom's are two teams that I've seen that got a lot of young pitchers to the system. But
Kellenberg has that kid
Carroll.
that kid Ryan Carroll, the big boy.
Yeah,
he can throw
6'7".
too.
Yeah, so there's some
he's
there's
pretty
some
good.
donkeys in the league right now. So I think that's all I got right now. We'll hopefully be able to do this again before the season.
Well, you got a baby. It's up to you.
And we got the preseason coaches discussion, so we'll try to get that done again. I know I got some good feedback from all the coaches. It's the one time that you're able to get everybody in the same room. Everybody seems to look forward to
Yeah, it
that
seems like
stuff.
the guys like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I'm glad you started that. I think that's a really good thing for our league as well.
And when is opening day this year for the Catholic League?
Catholic League, third week of March.
Awesome. So we got that circled on the calendar. We're into the new year now, so all eyes on the baseball season.
Yep.
So thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Axcess Baseball Podcast. Thank you to Coach Parsolano for being our guest, and thank you to the Long Island Fieldhouse for hosting this episode.